Hello, Abigail here with the astrology and tarot reading for the full moon in Capricorn. This full moon is on the 29th of June at 6:56 p.m. CDT, and it is an interesting one. It feels like progress, and yet we are dealing with a T square in the sky, which happens often because full moons naturally have 2 points. And so adding a third point isn't that difficult. But we have a T square with Neptune in this moment. It's 4 degrees away from this moon. This moon is at 8 degrees of Capricorn. As always, I would encourage you to check out where this is in your chart in Capricorn and also to look at the other cardinal signs, so Libra, Aries, and Cancer, as well as the other earth signs, so Virgo and Taurus, because the cardinal ones will give you squares and oppositions, and the other earth signs are trines. And so this will give you some information about the flow of this moon and how it's going to affect you. Also, if you're looking at Capricorn, we're looking at a conjunction. So taking a look and seeing how this affects you uniquely, specifically with this moon, I think will be helpful, because I feel like this full moon is going to, obviously everything impacts everyone differently, but I think specifically with this full moon, very dependent on what your chart is looking like and very dependent on the condition of your personal Saturn. Like I said, not all lunations feel this way, but this one definitely is like, all right, what is specific about this one? Because it feels very unique to the individual experiencing it. So as far as the astrology, the ruler is Saturn over in Aries. Also, while it's not tight, we do have a loose square to Saturn. So there is also kind of a loose T square over here with Saturn as well. So there is something here about building. It's also something about what can and cannot work, what will and will not work. I think specifically on this day, we might see some frustration because it'll be like the universe being like, so these things that you did, those aren't working. Let's try something new. And I think, especially on the day, we'll be kind of stuck in like, this is not what's working, partially because there's another added thing here, that we do have Mercury stationing retrograde. And while Mercury is not close by degree and is not really involved in any rulership of this moon, that feeling of being stalled is going to translate over into the energy of the day. So just know that I think the day of this lunation might feel pretty frustrating unless you've already kind of thrown your hands up and buckled in for whatever ride you're going to have. If you have already released control, I think it'll be okay. But if you want to get anything done, this full moon is not going to feel that progressive. Now, with that square to Neptune, I do think we're going to get some clarity, specifically in the house where we have, whatever house you have Aries in. Neptune has been kind of blurring and obscuring things a bit, a little bit of a beauty filter over there. And so I think on this day, we're going to get a bit of clarity around what has been going on at the early degrees of Aries in our chart, what we haven't been able to quite get a grip on. If you have a planet there, this is a good day to look at the themes and topics that that planet rules. I, for instance, have Venus there. So I'm definitely going to be checking in on my relationships and seeing, taking stock and kind of seeing how things have been, and asking myself, what maybe have I been missing in this grand picture and grand scheme. I also think it's important to note that this week, just in general, which if you watched my astrology for the week, you would know this, is just real crunchy. It's a real crunchy week. And while I think this full moon is not as crunchy as the rest of it, it is kind of the kickoff to a bunch of tricky stuff. And also, while Mars is not the ruler, it is the exalted ruler of Capricorn, and it is going through it on this day. It's got a square with the nodes. And so this is a very pivotal. Can you tell we're in the pre-shadow period of Mercury retrograde? I literally had to record content because in the pre-shadow, some of my videos just randomly don't have sound. Anyways, back from that ADHD tangent, Mars is also squaring the nodes on that day. So there is this element and this energy of having to take a different course of action, having to redirect. It might feel like a setback. I promise you it's not a setback. It is simply a readjustment. You're not moving backwards, you're just shifting in the space that you're in. And so maybe it's slowing you down a little bit, but it's not necessarily putting you behind. And because we're in a Mercury retrograde now officially, because it'll happen on that day, it's also like, if you don't deal with this now, if you don't adjust this now, in the future, it's going to really gum things up in a much bigger way. So you might as well deal with it now, which is a very kind of Capricornian thing to be like, yeah, we have to look at the restrictions and the limitations we have here and like create based off of those rather than kind of ignoring the parameters and having to backtrack later. And I also want to remind you that, Capricorn is, its symbol is that sea goat. And so it's not just the practical. This is also like multi-strata adjustments. You will not just be adjusting in the physical realm, you'll also be adjusting in the metaphysical realm and in, the psychic space. So if you've been on a psychic journey or some kind of journey of the soul, this is also going to fall under that. You needing to have to redo something or reconsider something. There might be a relationship with a spirit or a guide that you have to adjust. It feels kind of nitpicky. That's the energy I'm kind of feeling as I'm talking about it. Is it just kind of feels like we're having to like pick and pull at things for a more cohesive long-term picture. Doesn't mean that good things can't happen. I do think with this moment, especially if you've been feeling really down about something or feeling as though something is like not progressing, I do think with this square with Neptune, you might be like, oh, I'm actually further along than I thought. And so now I have to catch up mentally from this place of like, oh no, it's not working, to get to the place of, oh, it's working and I need to continue moving it forward and adjusting it as it goes along and like guiding this project or this idea a bit more because it's actually picking up traction. And I've been so upset about the lack of movement that I haven't been, kind of nurturing it and carrying it moving forward, if you will. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for things to go well, but there is an element of having to shift or adjust or change a perspective or change an approach in order to continue to push and move stuff forward. And like I say in most of my readings, these readings find people at different places. Some people find it at the beginning, middle, or end of a journey. Figure out where you're at. If you're in like the beginning of a journey, then this is like you needing to like kind of clear the way for this new idea, to like pick some beginning, just even, I think if we're at the beginning, just even getting an idea and moving it forward rather than just letting it sit. Sorry, I've got like a hair on my face. It's driving me insane. Um, I'm a little scattered, guys. If you're in the middle, this might be having to like readjust and shift something. And then that earlier energy I was talking about of like realizing that something's moving faster than you thought and you need to catch up with it. That's more of like we're towards the end of something and we're moving into a new chapter. So I'm not saying that this whole moon is like, going to be frustrating and crunchy, but in the moment it is going to be frustrating and crunchy. And I just encourage you not to let that kind of be the overarching takeaway and look at the broader picture and be like, how can I use this energy to fine tune, to adjust, to shift, to manage the things that I need in order to move forward, in order to shift and to find a way ahead. Also, a reminder that this is the last full moon before eclipse season. Now, we do have an eclipse free full moon. I want to point that out. It's Aquarius full moon. What I find in eclipses is that if that moon is on the same axis as an eclipse, so there will be the Leo new moon eclipse, I find that that moon feels very eclipsy and a lot of the outcomes are very eclipsy. It's just kind of like a notch or two lower. So for me, this full moon is kind of the last one before we hit that eclipse portal. And also that, full moon in Aquarius will be the eclipse portal opening. So just so you're aware, that's that's where we are. And also we are in the back to back, Saturn full moons right now. And so a lot of things about limitations, restrictions, what is your capacity for the stuff that you're dreaming and hoping? Do you have the ability to hold it? Who do you need to bring in? Are you going to do this alone? Is a big question that Saturn in a Saturn Capricorn mashup kind of brings up. What are your resources? What are your foundations? All of this stuff is going to kind of be highlighted in this moment. So just be aware of that and the fact that we are going to have to do a lot of shifting this week, not just because of this full moon, but because I I did the video for this and you can go and watch it because it'll already be posted at this point, but very rarely do I have like a rock in my chest psychically when I do astrology readings, even on rough weeks. And this one's a rough one. This one's going to be rough. It's just Mars hitting every single outer planet. Pluto's involved. The nodes are involved, and then we have, Mars is going to be coming up on its, you know, its sextile with Saturn as well. So not this week, but in the next week. So it's just, it's one of these moments that I think is going to feel really overwhelming, not just because of the full moon, but because of others. If you are feeling too exhausted to participate, my encouragement would be to just rest. You can do the nitpicky, the kind of cleaning up work as you go. This is not a moment that you necessarily need to be like massively proactive in. Now, being proactive always helps and can alleviate this energy, especially with Saturn. So if you can do it, but if not, don't drive yourself into the ground because this is just the beginning of a very bombastic week. Now, on the bright side about bombastic energy is like if things have sucked, this can also be a turnaround in the sucking. Um, but also it can just be more of the same. I will say with Uranus and the Mars conjunction, you know, put some energy for like positive change behind it. Because I think, especially this week with Mars, a lot of our impetus and desires and passion have a lot more power than normal. So throw your feelings behind things, throw your passion, throw your desire into your manifestations to try to harness some of this energy to get stuff done. Because if you can, that would be really helpful. Anyways, kind of coming back to this, you know, moon, I will say with the square to Neptune, people always handle this energy in a different way. This can also be someone doubling down on an illusion or refusing to accept reality. So just know that there can also be people who are just who will refuse to participate in like an honest and upfront way or in even like a normal way. So allow people to go their own way and go yours and do what you can for you and the people who are aligned with you rather than trying to bring people along who may or may not want to join us in this moment. They can get on board later if they want to, but don't put too much energy in trying to like corral people this week because people are going to be all over the place. You probably included. Also, you know, just kind of a final thing with the ruler being in a like a loose square, there is also kind of an element of like being, it's almost like Eight of Swords in tarot. It's like of being like almost a prisoner of your own like actions and mind. Remember that you can always change things. Like you can't change the world, you can't often always change your circumstances, but you can change your actions and your behavior. And especially in a week like this, that I think is what's most important. Is being like, no, I can shift the stuff that I want to shift for me, even if I can't do that on like a macro scale. So focus on the little things that you can do rather than the big things that are completely out of any of our control, because that's just going to like deep six you in this kind of energy. If you want some kind of ritual, I would suggest doing an energy call in. So calling back in your energy from places where you've lost it, because this full moon does feel a bit leaky. Like you're going to have like highlighted all the ways in which your energy is being taken. Also, if you have subscriptions or like things you are like signed up for that you're paying money out and you're not aware of them, this is the time to make a list and to go through and cull them and to get rid of any subscriptions that you're not using on the day to day as a way to like save money and to keep your abundance locked in. Also, if you've been giving your energy away to other people without kind of either receiving reciprocation or you just feel too drained, this is the time to like slowly pull that back in. And I think even if you don't do it now, the Mercury retrograde is going to force you to do this. So might as well use the energy of this full moon to just pull it back in. This is also a time to go through Instagram followings and delete people, not delete, but you know, unfollow people that you no longer align with. You know, if there's any like energy suckers that are like attached to your account that just watch everything but never like anything, this might be the time to toss those guys off too. Basically, this full moon for me feels like we can't do much to change the BS that's going to happen, but you can tighten up your energetic boundaries. You can clean out your home. You can tidy your space. You can purge your contacts. You can maybe set some more boundaries when it comes to your followers if you have a large following online or even a small one. But yeah, just setting boundaries, clarifying things, those little things that may not seem like much are going to have a really big impact in this moment. So that's the full moon. A little tense, a little tight. I do think that similar to the Aquarius new moon, just because of the energy that is around it and that it embodies. This is one of those moments where I think actually some pretty big stuff is going to happen. It's just not going to be necessarily super obvious at the time. And the little things that we do have a really big impact. It just may not feel that way. So focus on the little things. It's a win if you do anything during this week, because this week is just one energetic hit after the next, to be frank. Anyways, let's get into the tarot. I always enjoy bringing in this perspective on this new and full moon videos. It always gives me extra insight and, gets me outside of my kind of astrologer brain. Ooh. And just like I said, things that we don't expect are coming from this moon. Nice. Ooh. Love this. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Seven of Wands. Yep. As to be expected. Yes, yes. Wee. Oh, well, we're going to start with this because we have the Seven of Swords. And what did I say about pulling back in your power, about retaking and reclaiming your stuff? Yeah, the Seven of Swords can be about deception and stuff, but it's also about taking back what is yours. It's also about reclaiming your time, returning things to yourself. And this isn't something that you need to announce to the world. You can literally just go in, and I would suggest this, go in and quietly just reclaim your power, quietly clear your follow list, um, quietly do the things you need to do. There's no reason to announce this. But getting into what I drew and was like, ooh, and like, big difference is we have the Ace of Cups and the World to start with. That was from the bottom of the deck. So this full moon has a massive amount of potential. It's just not necessarily that obvious in the moment, especially if you are expecting to feel in control. The Emperor. Now, with the Emperor, you can take control of what you have control over. But I do think there's going to be kind of an energy and a desire to like have control over more. And the part of the lesson of this full moon is like, and you don't. And that's not necessarily how this is going to work. But this moon has massive potential. And so I would encourage you, another thing to do on this full moon would be to kind of like get a list of what you want or reaffirm your desires and your path ahead, to kind of take a practical look at like what you have and don't have, and be thankful and appreciative and joyful about the stuff that you have attained through your efforts, and then be like, and more of that please, and these things as well, and I'm ready for more, is a good place to kind of start and a good way to use this energy. Now, where I was like, yes, I see, we do have Seven of Wands. There is restriction in this. And then we have Three of Wands and the Ace of Pentacles. This is about getting clear about where you want to head next, because we're still kind of fighting through old energy. We're still kind of finalizing stuff. I also think so with the um, eclipse axis the way it is. So with we're gonna have partial eclipses, not partial eclipses, which yes, that also, but we're going to have eclipses in Aquarius and Leo, and then eclipses in Virgo and Pisces, and we're never going to get a full Aquarius axis. We will switch over to the next axis in the next summer with Capricorn and Cancer, and Aquarius will never get its own thing. So we're always going to have this kind of back and forth energy through these eclipses. And the minute we got into Cancer season, the eclipse messages started happening, even though it's not till middle of Leo season. But with this energy, I think a lot of what we are doing is preparing for the eclipses. And I actually kind of like having a Mercury retrograde before an eclipse, not during necessarily, because that's just too much. Is that we get to prepare and cleanse to utilize these eclipses, the World and the Ace of Cups, to the best of our ability, to kind of harness them to move ourselves and our desires forward. And so in this moment, yes, we are kind of stuck, and I don't think we're going to fully move in Cancer season, but we are preparing for big things, preparing for big shifts, preparing for big changes. And a part of this preparation is the Three of Swords and the Ace of Swords. We need to process the feelings, the harms, the ways in which we have felt maybe unjustly treated, the ways in which we've been hurt. Also with this Ace and with the Three of Swords, it is giving Chiron has just moved into Taurus into the early degrees. And so, with this energy of kind of a fresh look at trauma and a fresh look at our pain and the ways in which it has impacted us long term, in this full moon, we're being asked to not necessarily alchemize it, but to process it in order to prepare ourselves for these big shifts and changes that are coming. Because if we're kind of stuck in old energy, if we're kind of sticking to an old fight, by the time the energy of the eclipses comes in, we will not be quite ready to move. And so, yeah, and then, ooh, very nice. We have Queen of Cups, Two of Cups, and the Sun. Yeah. The eclipses are going to bring in a surprising amount, especially being on the Leo Aquarius axis. Interesting. I'll have to think about this. Not now. But they're going to bring in a beautiful amount of connection and authentic connection that we can actually shine in, that we can actually grow in. And it all starts with us getting aligned and attuned with this Queen of Cups to our best possible frequency. And I'm not talking high, low. I think that can often actually be ableist language, but to the frequency that works best for us and the energies that work best for us and that are most aligned and most honest with who we are and what we are, so that when the eclipses happen, when we get, you know, this kind of full boost of energy, and we're kind of slung into the cosmos as the eclipses are wont to do, we will kind of have created, especially with this emperor here and, the Queen of Cups, we will have created kind of like a preset of conditions to kind of, it won't be clean, I'll say that, but to when we get slingshotted into the cosmos and the universe messes with timelines, which it does during eclipses, that we get kind of shot into the area that we most desire to land with the people we most desire to connect to. And so I don't necessarily think it's going to happen right now, although we might see some fruition, especially with the Sun and the Two of Cups here, and the World and the Ace of Cups. That new moon, which is going to be, I think, on July 14th, the new moon on July 14th, which is the partner moon to this full moon, I do think we're going to see some kind of relationship coming in, whether it be romantic, whether it be friendship, whether it be, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a human, it can be a pet, it can be a job, some kind of other thing is going to be coming in that is super aligned to who we are and what we are. And this whole full moon of like little bits and pieces everywhere and having to figure things out and things not working is here to help us align, is here to help us figure out what we really want. So when all these big things start happening in the next few months, we have the capacity, Queen of Cups, Ace of Cups, Two of Cups, to hold multiple truths, to hold dynamic relationships, to hold the very real manifestations we've been manifesting that it might seem silly, but I think all of us have experienced this, or maybe not. But when you really want something and then you get it, and then you have to decide what to do with it, and you have to now take the thing that you have and move forward with it. We're being asked to prepare for that. We are being asked to get ready for things, Ace of Pentacles, to shift and change in a material way, especially with the Three of, Wands. Things are going to change and they're going to change fast. We're going to go from planting a seed to being like, and where are my merchant ships within a very short period of time. So prepare yourself. Don't view this as a delay. View this as a reset and a recalibration to prepare you for some pretty wild stuff that I sense is coming in for a lot of people. The beginning of this year is very sticky. It's going to continue to be a bit sticky, but I do think the intensity, the intensity, sorry guys, we're in the pre-Mercury retrograde shadow. The intensity of this energy, while it is chaotic and a lot, over time also eventually brings in good things. It just takes time, and it's almost like the things are having to form out of the primordial ooze that the universe has created out of chaos. And so get ready for things to change. Maybe not fully in Cancer season. I think we're looking at the other sides of the eclipses. So like end of Virgo season, beginning of Libra season. I especially think the fall is going to be particularly bounteous, especially if you were someone who has been slumming it this year. Big shifts, big changes, the energy you've kind of dumped into the cosmos, hoping something comes out of it, is actually going to come back to you. and in a better way, but we do have to get through this. And this full moon in Capricorn, I feel like, is us delineating and having to like get down. And it's I'm kind of getting the image of like a box with like old photographs and childhood toys and memories and also newer stuff, and you're having to sort through it and decide what you want to keep, what you don't want to keep, what's important, what's not important. Do you want to give it away? Do you want to throw it away? That's the energy of this full moon. But you're doing all of this to create space for new stuff that is coming in, that is going to overtake your life in a good way, that is going to consume so much of your time and energy that you're not going to have the time to do this later. So doing it now is a great idea. And this is a great reminder as I look at my very messy desk. I need to clear this. I need to clean. My ADHD brain rioting. No. Anyways, this is my reading for this full moon. Do what you can with it, but don't pressure yourself. And also, I find if you are listening to the universe and truly aligning yourself, when you get into the energy of this full moon, you will know exactly what to do, even if that's just sitting down and not doing anything. All right, my loves, many blessings for this full moon. Use it as a preparation and a play space for the life that you are hopefully manifesting and bringing in. And I think if you have been really putting your back behind it, those manifestations are going to come true. Just it's not going to feel like it in this moment. But definitely there is potential with the new moon in Cancer. Also, like I said, I've just been feeling this the minute we hit like tail end of Gemini season. This eclipse season is going to be interesting, especially if you've been kind of taking hits. I think there's an opportunity for some really nice stuff to happen now. If you haven't been taking hits, this is a chance for things to be shaken up. So just know that juxtaposition is there. Anyways, my loves, many blessings, a blessed full moon in Cancer, and I'll see you all later.